Good morning and welcome to Cover 2 Cook. We are on episode 44. Buckle up because we got a lot of college football, some NFL and some college football to recap as Thursday and Friday happen. We got to talk about our must-watch for Saturday and how we're betting this weekend. But before I get too far, let me bring on my co-host, Mr. Tim Cook. How you doing today?
I'm doing good today. We had some really good games on Thursday, some controversial game early, and then Friday was really good games.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Let's get right into it because we got a lot to talk about. Thursday, starting our Thanksgiving, getting our first meal in. If you eat Thanksgiving at 5 o'clock, you're wrong. Just plain and simple. Eat it at lunch. Started off at lunch right there. Bears versus Lions. What'd you think about this game?
Yeah, this was. I didn't. The ending was, but we'll start it off. That Sewell tried to throw a pass and the Bears snuffed it out early. I mean, this game it just seemed like the Bears were always. They never was out of it, and they let them Detroit let them play the whole time. And there was a couple plays. I think the big key was right at halftime where Gibbs was running in and he fumbles the ball and they gives it right back to the Bears. That showed right there that they were still in it. That was the first fumble that Gibbs had given up, I think, all year. So the bad deal too is the only bright spot. They only had 2 first downs in the first half. The Bears did. Yeah. I mean, and they were still in it. So and then the last play, the last drive, they were going down the field, and Keenan Allen gets a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. You can't have that guy. I mean, I get it. They tried to rip the deal off, but you can't throw the ball like that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Then at the end, they've got 30-some seconds, and he takes that sack. God, you can't take that sack there. You got to get rid of it. And then they just kind of stood frozen, like they didn't know what to do. Nobody knew, and they still had a timeout left. And then they hike the ball, and he throws it, and the game is over. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think this, which now Matt Eberflus is gone, right? He's fired. Yeah. Had to happen. We had to have it because of how this game ended. I feel like they were in the game the whole time because of the talent that the Bears have. The Bears have talent. It's just whether or not they can put it all together to win a game. I mean, keeping with the Lions there and throughout the whole game, I definitely agree with you. I also learned this stat like 10 minutes before the game started that the Bears are 4-0 against the Lions on Thanksgiving Day.
Right.
I was like, wait, what? Well, if you look back at the times, and obviously Bears were good, Lions not so much. But it was one of these things where I was like, the Bears just stayed in the game, and I'm like, there's no way that the Lions are going to give this back. In the second half, it was all about the Bears and the passing game. Keenan Allen got more involved, everything like that. And then literally it gets to the point where, okay, you got this drive going, and he's hooking up with Keenan Allen. DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, he gets down this, and this is where we say that, well, he's a rookie. Unfortunately, he has now made 2 plays in the final moments of games that have lost him the game. Caleb Williams, that sack against Minnesota last week in overtime, and this sack here. Throw the ball away. Stop trying to do too much. And that's a little bit on coaching, but that's on him. You don't have to be the Heisman. And I think we've done this because in 7-on-7, it was cool for him to do this. In high school, it was cool for him to do this. College, it was cool for him to do it. We gave him an award for it. And now in the NFL, we're like, stop doing it. Throw the ball. And Eberflus had to be fired because of whether it's a rookie quarterback, who's calling the time. Call the timeout. Get everyone situated. Like, it was bad. And obviously they had to fire him because if not, it was going to keep the news about the Bears for as long as until something happened. And it's not the way you want to part ways, but they're doing their trend again. They're doing their cycle again.
Right. And that's the deal too, that they're going to have to be careful with this because the Jets fired Robert Saleh and look where the Jets landed. Yeah. So, I mean, they had to do something, and you can't replace the OC again because you already replaced that. Yeah. So I hope that Williams doesn't regress by having Brown be the coach and the OC. I hope he doesn't regress. I don't think he will, but that it's a very. But you're right. They had to do something because you can't let that fly.
Yeah. Well, and if he did, it was just going to be this week's conversation throughout the week. it was going to be, and you're on a 3-game losing streak. And honestly, you talk about this, they are maybe like 3 to 5 plays away from beating every NFC North team.
Right.
Field goal to beat the Packers. The Vikings, they took them into overtime. And then the Lions right here down to the end, which they could have kicked a field goal to tie it. Not saying they're going to win, but they were 3 to 5 plays away from changing the whole NFC North, and they didn't. Now, I'm going to say this final thing about this game. As a Vikings fan, I think the Lions are beatable. The Lions are beatable. Because if the Bears can do it, and the Vikings pretty much just did it the last week, the same exact result of this game, I think the Lions are beatable. I think that was at the Lions. The Vikings had to play in Chicago. I mean,
well, and we're going to see how good because Thursday night it's Green Bay at Detroit, so we're going to see how good this is going to be. A good game Thursday night.
Well, and Thursday. I think it opens up. Last thing too is they open up the NFC North now, because if the Lions are beatable, let's see this Sunday when the Ravens play the Eagles, how good the Eagles are.
Right.
Because if the Eagles kind of look like they're not, this NFC North or NFC might be wide open.
Right.
Well, that takes us to our afternoon game. You're probably unbuttoning your pants from your lunch, trying to start to doze off, and you're thinking, oh, backup quarterbacks now, no worries. Comes out to be a great game. Giants and Cowboys. Cowboys win 27-20. Drew Lock plays, and I said on the last podcast, do not play the Cowboys if Drew Lock does. Well, if you would have just said, shut up, Anthony, you don't know what you're talking about, but still taking the Cowboys, you would have still won this bet.
Right.
Drew Lock looks great in that first series. Cowboys get to pick him off later, and then it was just a Cowboys show. Obviously, the game looks closer, but Giants scored 10 points in the fourth to make it a close game. But Cowboys got it going a little bit. I think the Cooper Rush running the ball the way they did this last week, and just CD Lamb was nowhere a part of this game, and they still won this game. They're using more of those weapons that we talked about all year, being like, someone else has got to step up. Someone else has got to step up. Someone's got to do something. And CD Lamb's only has, 3 catches, 5 drops almost, damn near. And they play this game. Now, it is the Giants. We get it. They suck. But the Cowboys are kind of going. I will say one last thing about this game. Michael Parsons at the end of the game says, we just got to run the table and we're in the playoffs.
Maybe, brother. Come on, Micah. Come on. Come back to us, Micah.
So, what about this game? Quick?
I mean, before halftime, the crowd was booing the Cowboys. That was not good, And, they got Dowdle going. I think he had over 100 yards rushing, and Locke, man, I tell you what, that defense was – that Locke was taking a lot of hits at that game, a lot of hits, So, and then, the Giants had 14 penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't that. They're just a hot mess right now. They are just – they're not going anywhere, and they may clean house too as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think, unfortunately, the coaching staff and all that's got to go as well, just because – and I think GM's definitely got to go because of the whole decision of Saquon and all Daniel and all this. But, yeah, it is a hot mess. But at the same time, Drew Lock looks good in that first drive. And then
he threw that pick. When he threw that pick, it was like,
Yeah, well, and the pick was a great play by the defensive player. But, at the same time, it was just one of these things where I sit here and go, he had a short week. DeVito, the last week, he kind of came in a little bit later. Monday, he was named the quarterback. But it's just get your shit going. You know what I mean? Just stop trying to embarrass yourself. That's all the Giants need to do at this point.
Right.
That takes us to the night game, a cold one in Lambeau. The Dolphins take the Green Bay Packers on. Green Bay wins this 30-17. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, Green Bay gets the ball and they punt it, and then Miami fumbles and gives Green Bay awesome field position, and they took advantage of it, I mean, this game was pretty much over before they even hiked the ball. That coach was so cold, and when the coach is cold, the team is cold, and they just don't play very well. I don't think that team is set up. They're set up for warmer weather. That team there cannot play in cold weather. I mean, they're 1-13, or I don't even know if they won a game below 40 degrees. So, I mean, and Love was fine in Reed. He had a couple touchdowns. And then they kind of made it a little bit interesting. They kind of came back in garbage time. But this game wasn't even close to the final score.
I totally agree. And like you say, the coaching staff, I mean, that's who's speaking to the players. I don't know if it's the players can't play in the cold. I'm tired of hearing that because some of these players, like the fullback for Dolphins, is from Wisconsin. He played the Badgers. I don't want to hear about the players. I just think he can't do this high-flying, passing the ball in the cold weather.
Right.
And I want to say this, and I saw it on, I think like Keyshawn Johnson or one of them said it, that I'm questioning Tua's arm strength. When it comes to these cold weather games, he can't get the ball down the field. I don't know if it's all that, okay? Relax. I don't think you can run the ball. And that's what you have to do in these cold games. That's what the NFC North is known for. When it gets into these cold games, run the damn ball. And A-Chain just wasn't used the same way. He was more used in the passing game than he was in the rushing game. I just think the Green Bay, like this upper hand that they have with these Lambeau games. I mean, I'm in Wisconsin now, and it's cold. It's cold as shit. It's cold in Illinois right now.
Right.
But these games where like Miami comes in, Detroit comes in, Minnesota comes in, the only team that is used to cold weather is Chicago, and haven't been good in the past 5 years. But like, I think the Packers are a scary team to watch out for. I hate to hear it because I hate the cheeseheads, but I think they're a scary team. They showed it on national television on Friday.
Yeah. Right. I think with that running attack of Josh Jacobs, he's killing it right now. I mean, if they can do that, get the runs, because that opens up the pass. And they had a lot of room downfield with Reed and Wicks and all them guys. So, I mean, they could be dangerous. And again, come Thursday, they'll be playing the Lions.
Yeah.
That should be a good game.
You know if it's at Green Bay or if it's at Lions?
It's at Detroit.
Okay. But still.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, that moves us to yesterday, Friday, for the game, because we are recording Saturday mornings. Friday for the Raiders versus the Chiefs. Now, I was driving home for this game. I have an amazing wife that let me stream Amazon Prime to listen to this game while we were driving. And I will say this. Chiefs I'm not sold. I'm not sold on it. I'm done. I'm waiting for them to make one complete game where they show the good defense and good offense. They have not yet done it once this year. And we are in week 13, whatever, 12 games have been played. They have not yet once shown it. I get it. You don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. You don't bet against Andy Reid. Play one complete game. One game. And if that one game is a Super Bowl because you make it that far, then hey, shut up. Shut up, Anthony. Shut up. I get it. But I'm telling you right now, the Raiders should have won this game last night. And I could say that about this team. And if they play like this going forward in the playoffs, they will get beat. But Raiders, you had them. You had them right to the end. That final play where he snapped it. Look, it was all on the quarterback. The quarterback is taking responsibility. I'm glad for that because offensive linemen don't usually have a voice to speak about. He clapped his hands. The guard snacked the center. The center hiked the ball. It was 100% on the quarterback. But damn, this was a good game. That second half, very interesting. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, they were getting the ball down the field. I was shocked with Bowers in that for the Raiders. I mean, O'Connell he threw some darts in there in the second half where I was like, whoa. I mean, he was throwing at Jacoby Myers. He was throwing darts in there that the Chiefs had no answer for. And like you said at the end, that the hike the ball, I didn't understand the rule because I thought a illegal formation or illegal is an automatic dead ball. That is not. The only way that would have been a dead ball is if it would have been a false start. Then that would have been a dead ball. They could have got the ball still then. And because I was watching, I'm like, isn't that like a dead ball foul? And they said, no, the rule is with that illegal formation, it is not a dead ball foul. It's a live ball. And that's how the Chiefs recovered it and end up winning the game. So I was kind of confused at the end with that one.
Yeah, and that's why you saw the center going like, it was full start. Like,
yeah, right.
Here's the thing that people are not talking about either. It's a 10-second runoff. You had 14, so you would have had to snack the ball and kick the field goal from there. It's not Daniel Carlson. I think, no.
You're right. Yeah.
He didn't make any field goals over 50 yards.
No.
So it wasn't, and that's why I'm saying that they got lucky because there just wasn't enough time in the game. Because the Raiders had the game. They just didn't have time. They had to turn it off earlier, which they're not a good team. So, I mean, but they ran the ball on Kansas City. They're the worst running offense. Yep. And they ran it on that.
I think, and he's the third string quarterback or third string running back that was running the ball.
I'm not sold on him. I'm just so tired of everyone being like, Kansas City. I get it. It's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, but I can't do it. But you thought that was a good game. And then we go into Friday night. We get some college football. So we had college football all throughout the day. I'll kind of recap it real quick. We had Boise State beat Oregon State. We had Ole Miss beat Mississippi State 26-14. Boise State beat Oregon State 34-18. Oklahoma State gets absolutely embarrassed by Colorado, 52-0. I don't know who that dumbass that said that Oklahoma State was going to win the Big 12, but no.
Right. Yeah.
We get into the night game, Friday night, Georgia versus Georgia Tech. Hey,
Wow.
Georgia will handle it. 8 overtimes later. What do you think about this game?
Yeah. Georgia didn't score. This is the first time that Georgia's not scored in the first half at home in a long time. They look like they don't look like a playoff team right now. They don't. They are very inconsistent. I don't know. And that Georgia Tech team that beat Florida State earlier this year, which we know that Florida State wasn't very good. They've taken a few teams. They beat Miami at home. They're a team. I like that coach, and you can tell at the end of the game where he just drops his headset. He just was just like, I'm just spent. I'm spent. I can't. And in the press conference, he was. I don't think he was mad. He just like, oh, I can't take any more of this. It just. And after the eight overtimes, which the record is 9, so they could have played another. I mean, they almost played another one, which would have tied the record. But Georgia just, and then here we go. If they would have lost, but they still get to go into the SEC championship game, they still could have made the playoffs. I just don't know if they're. It's a good thing that it's a 12-team playoff now, because I don't think they would have. They'd make it if it was an 8-team playoff. I don't know if they make it.
Well, and I will say this too: if it was a 4-team this year, I think Notre Dame's in. I think Notre Dame is top 4 because in this game, Notre Dame handled Georgia Tech, and I think it was a neutral site. It was not.
Yeah, it was in Atlanta.
Right. Yes, and they handled them easily. This was at Georgia, and Georgia really wins this game. I'm feeling every more week that we just watch this SEC beat up on each other, I think Notre Dame looks better. Notre Dame looks better. I'm unsure if the SEC is actually that good this year. Right. I've said that multiple times, but last night Georgia should have handled this game. And don't tell me it was a look-ahead game, because you don't even know who you're playing. You don't.
Yeah, right.
It's a look-ahead game. Georgia Tech had them on the ropes. I will say this was a master class of coaching by Kirby Smart. Timeouts every overtime, pretty much. Seeing what their formation is. You saw. I secretly think that Georgia Tech didn't know they had timeouts, even though their timeouts were getting called. Because he on the second overtime, he sends out his field goal team, and it's like, nope, you got to go for 2, bud.
Right.
So there was a little bit of like learning curve on this one. I saw the coaches embrace each other after the game a lot. Yeah. It's exhausting. I mean, me and the wife were watching it, and she's like, "This is exhausting." I'm like, and imagine playing like 8 overtimes is just absolutely crazy. Now I learned something yesterday. I didn't know. I thought it was like 3, but I didn't realize after 2, it's just 2-point conversions.
Right. Yes.
1 point. Give it all you got. Unfortunately, that's where I think Georgia Tech screwed themselves. They kept throwing the ball. What got you guys in this game? What won you in this game, or almost won you in this game? Run the ball. I know it's only 1 play. But Haynes King or any of your running back, I just thought that was where, and that's what Georgia did. Georgia ran the ball in after getting stopped. But it is, and last thing I'll say too about this game is that it makes you as a Notre Dame fan want to join a conference, because hell, you could lose 3 times and still go in the game.
Right.
We'll say though that the playoff committee is sitting here being like, Notre Dame better lose first round, because if it makes a run, it is everything that they hated. They made conference winners be the top 4, and they said, join a damn conference, Notre Dame. And if Notre Dame keeps running it. Now we'll talk about them because we're about to talk about our must watch. But when you're in, that gets us to today's Saturday. So okay. Rewind, fast forward, whatever you had to do. There was a lot of recapping, a lot of football over this week, which was great. But that brings us to our must-watch games for today. Now, this game isn't much of a must-watch because it's going to be a close game, but it's more instead about the rival of these two teams and how it's always been a classic, definitely if you're in the Midwest. Michigan versus Ohio State today. Now, Davis Warren for Michigan is going to have to get involved in that offense, right? Yeah. He's going to have to run the ball well, protect the ball. Do not get Ohio State close or good field position. Unfortunately, though, you're going to play the best defense you played all year. And Ohio State's defense up front is great. I feel like they're going to shut down the wide receivers. They're going to shut down the run. Michigan's going to have to do play. They're going to have to pull things out of their ass. Now, on the other side, if you're the quarterback for Ohio State, you have to make sure, Will Howard, you're going to have to make sure you hold on to protect the ball. If you give Michigan chances to get short field position, whether it's field goals, touchdowns, whatever they get off of it, You will keep them in this game. I just don't know if Michigan is going to have enough to even make this one close. I actually thought about betting this one. Unfortunately, the betting lines are too far away. But what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, Michigan has not seen a defense like this. This is the number one defense in the nation right now, scoring defense, and their offense, and Ohio State's offense is 10th in the nation. So they've never seen a juggernaut like this all year. I mean, Indiana, but this Ohio State's way above the deal. The Wolverines will, and this is the big rivalry game, just like last night with Georgia Tech. Hopefully we get a good game, but they would love it no more than to knock Ohio State out of the playoffs, out of the Big Ten championship. I don't know if they knock them out of the playoffs, but it would definitely knock them out of the Big Ten championship, because if they lose, Penn State moves up. So then Oregon would play Penn State in the Big Ten championship. So, I think they just have too much talent. The Buckeyes against Michigan, you're hoping they keep it close, but like I said, I think they can. You're just hoping that they can keep it close.
Yeah, and I agree. Like we said, it's a must-watch game, but it's not like a must-watch because we think the game's gonna be close. It's just must-watch because this is a rival in the Midwest that everyone knows, right? If you're from Illinois and you're an Illinois fan, it's obviously Northwestern Illinois, right? But like this one is the one that takes over the Big Ten. I always feel like you see fistfights at the bars because these fans hate each other that way. This is the 120th meeting, but this is the biggest point spread that these two teams have faced each other, because Ohio State is favored, rewind that a little bit. When it did start at the initial point spread, it was 21.5. Now it's down to 19.5.
Wow.
The biggest spread was Michigan, was like back in 05 or 06. Michigan was up it was like 17.5. So it's kind of getting closer on the point spread, but initially it was 21.5. And I was like, that is way too much. Yeah, I'm not touching that. That's way too many points.
Yeah. Well, and here's another too. Ryan Day hasn't beat Michigan since 2019.
Yeah.
This is a big game. You lose this one, buddy, you may be on the hot seat, because this is the most important game. So I mean, it's the biggest rival. So I mean, this is the biggest game for him. It's kind of like Auburn and Alabama, kind of, but in the Big Ten.
And they always say your season ends with this game because this determines how the season went. Right. They don't care if they make playoffs. National championship is great, but if you didn't beat Michigan, it didn't matter. Right.
Well,
that moves us to another rival game, and at the 11 o'clock time, South Carolina versus Clemson. What do you think about this game?
This is an in-state rival. They play for the Palmetto Bowl. It looks like a flower to me. So I was like, I guess palmetto is a flower. I don't know, but South Carolina's won 5 straight, and they play themselves into possible playoff game, playoff team. While Clemson, they're a little closer to the playoffs. They might have as the first team out of the bracket. So they're one of the first ones out when the bracket came out Tuesday. So these two teams play for that. Like I said, I think the key to this matchup is Clemson's O-line. Can they keep the pass rushers from on South Carolina? Can they keep them in control? Because they have a pretty good DNs. So I think because they're like 4th in the nation in sacks per game. These DNs, they're pretty good.
I agree, and I think the other side of it as well is Sellers for South Carolina. He's had the past 2 games has thrown over 300 passing yards. Can Clemson keep that in check? I think these are 2 great defenses against 2 hit-or-miss offenses. I mean, I know Carolina's came on recently, but this game, and I'm actually betting on this game because of what happened in the past, okay? And that's all I'm saying. South Carolina has played games close against some of these great teams. Alabama, LSU, blah, 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 right? SEC teams. Now they're going to play an ACC team that I don't think I think maybe worse than the ACC is probably the worst, if not right below or right ahead of Big 12. Right. So you're playing Clemson, who had Louisville come into them and spank their asses. Right. So I think this game is going to come down to 100% of what the defense is. But the series dates back to 1896, the only time they've ever played each other during COVID, which you're going to hear a lot of that today. But this is only the 7th time that both teams are ranked going into this. Usually either Clemson's good or South Carolina something. But this is a game where South Carolina can put their stamp on it and say, what this year could have been. What they could have been with the one possessions that they could have beat some of these teams, they could be playing for an SEC championship. Do I think that they deserve to be in the playoffs if they win this game? I think they're right on the edge because they're hot right now. And if they beat the hell out of Clemson like I think they're going to, I think they're right there saying, hey, we're hot now. We can make a little fun in this playoff. So
Right. I agree.
that takes us to the night game, and this is the game, right? This is the game that everyone's got to have to watch. Texas A&M versus Texas, winner of the game, takes on Georgia for the SEC championship. Yeah, you know that team that just barely won against Georgia Tech. Take them on. So that means Texas A&M, the team that lost to Notre Dame in the start of the season, comes back, loses another game. They could go in the SEC championship. Or you could have a Texas team that was, the national champions before the season started. Not looking as great now. Texas A&M is going to have to run the ball this game. Texas defense, they hold teams to running. They're ranked 13th against the run, and they only allow about 140 yards per game. Well, that's Texas A&M's motto. That's how they go. They run the ball, and they open up the play action for their quarterback. This is a game between the quarterbacks. Quinn Ewers is supposed to be coming in with an ankle injury, while you have the young quarterback at Texas A&M. I think this game is going to be great, but unfortunately, Texas A&M, I don't think you guys get this one. I just really think that with the way Texas A&M has it, but you know what? Before I finish that sentence, didn't Georgia go into Texas and beat the hell out of them? This will be a great game. Must watch. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time they've played in 13 years.
Yeah.
And now since they're in the SEC, now you'll probably see a little bit more of it. Like you said, the two teams, winner goes to the SEC championship. They're only, which I was kind of shocked on this one. They're only separated, their campuses are only separated by 100 miles. So they're really close. This is a rivalry game. I think the key is going to be, can Texas A&M offense control the clock?
Yeah.
And can that that defense get after yours? Yours has got a bum ankle. So, I mean, if they can make him get out of the pocket and have to run a little bit, that might soften up that ankle a little bit too. So, I mean, I think that's going to be the key too. And then you got the crowd. You got that 12th man. They're going to be 105. Ask LSU how that worked out for them. I mean, it's going to be a night game. I think it's going to be a darn good game.
Yeah, the only thing I have about, because it is at Texas A&M. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. I think that the crowd definitely changes it a little bit. My only thing about this game that for Texas is how soon do you go to Arch Manning if Quinn is actually injured? How soon do you go with it? Because you cannot let this game get out of hand. Now, if Texas loses, Texas is still in the playoffs for sure, right? Texas A&M loses, they're not in the playoffs. Okay,
right.
You got to win this game. You got to get in here with this one. The point spread is 4.5 in this game. I want to enjoy it more than bet it because I'm going to get pissed off if my team ain't doing what I'm doing.
Right.
But this weekend, I think we could have named 7 must-watch games because of the rival of the and then also what the playoff indications. We didn't talk about the playoff, what they put on Tuesday night. We didn't talk about it because we'll tell you about it next week when we get done with these rival games and we get in conference and say, here's what they think because who they think is going to win these games.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I was looking at it. I mean, just a short snippet of it. They're talking about Tulane. If they can win out, they'll make the playoffs. They got beat yesterday.
Yep.
Or that was Thursday night. They got beat. That's like, okay, well, that's out. So.
And Memphis ran the ball all over them like that.
They
looked bad.
Yep.
Well, at 11 o'clock, we have some other games. We have Tennessee versus Vanderbilt. We have the Illini taking on Northwestern at 2:30 today. We have Maryland taking on Penn State. 2:30, we have Notre Dame versus USC. I'm going to stop real quick. As Notre Dame fans, obviously you see the thing in the background. When you're in, but I will tell you right now, I'm going to sweat bullets this entire game. This is a game that you can just ruin everything for Notre Dame. Now, I will say this. If Notre Dame beats the shit out of USC, which I think should, and I am expecting to happen, watch out for Notre Dame. Yeah. You give them a couple weeks off because they don't play for a conference championship, and then they're going to be in the playoffs. I'd hate to see y'all Notre Dame haters not be able to get to see them. What do you think, real quick?
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on that, I think if they win, they're a number 5 seed. I think they're a 5 seed. And that's the easy seed right now to go down through, because if you win that one, you're the 4th seed. Probably have to play maybe Boise State or the Big 12 champ. I mean, so that's an easy. I mean, you got the Vanderbilt and a lot of the in-state rivals too. Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Vanderbilt's not a bad team. Can they upset Tennessee? You got the Illinois Northwestern. I think Illinois should handle them because Northwestern's not very good. So I think there should be a lot of good football to be played today.
Well, and then at 2:30, you still have Miami and Syracuse. You have California and SMU, Auburn and Alabama at the Iron Bowl. You also have Arizona State and Arizona, Arkansas and Missouri. For your night games, you have Purdue and Indiana, Washington and Oregon, Kansas State and Iowa State. That was a game that we thought about doing a must-watch. Nevada, UNLV, and Houston versus BYU. So let's get under our bettings, okay? Because I think we're going to talk about some of these games when we get into betting. What do you got for your first game?
Kansas State, Iowa State. Kansas State has won 3 of the last 5. Iowa State, 5 out of the last 6 at home. Kansas State's got the good quarterback, Avery Johnson, and the ground game is really good. But Iowa State's got a good at home, too, with Rocco Becton. The Cyclones' ground attack is averaging 162 yards a game. Kansas State has failed to cover the spread 5 of the last 6 road games against conference opponents, while Iowa State has covered the spread 8 of the last 10 games against Kansas State. I think Iowa State's offense is just will control this game. And so give me Iowa State at home, and I'll lay the 2 points.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I was debating this one, but I hate betting the Big 12 right now just because I don't know what team I'm getting.
Yeah, right.
I think this will be a great game. This is another one we talked about was a must-watch because of just the night, what the playoff indications have with this one being the who goes to the Big 12 championship. Right. Colorado kind of solidified, say, hey, we deserve to be in it, but depends on this game as well. For my first bet, I'm going LSU and Oklahoma. Okay, Oklahoma embarrassed Alabama last week. Embarrassed Jalen Milroe. I mean, at one point it looks like he's tripping him, not trying to tackle him. Now you got an LSU team that obviously has been either problems with discipline, problems with Brian Kelly, or just can't get it all together. The offense has struggled. So I don't like the point spread in this one. I like the under of 47.5. I think this can be a good and LSU's got a good defense. Oklahoma has a shitty offense. I think Oklahoma handles this game, but at the same time, I think 47.5 is just a lot of points for teams that have great defenses. I'm taking the under on this one.
Yeah, if I would to bet it, I think LSU wins. I think Oklahoma played their ass off against Alabama, and LSU. I mean that team right now is just down, and I think Brian Kelly. They need this win. They need this win. It might need this win just to save his job. So I like LSU in this one. I mean, if I was going to bet it, but I'm not.
Well, what do you got for your second bet?
NC State at UNC. NC State coming off the heartbreaking loss to Georgia Tech, while UNC is coming off a loss against BC. Wolfpack outgained Georgia Tech 400 to 391, but lost a turnover battle. North Carolina has won the last 3 November games at home. Also, UNC just fired their coach, Mac Brown, so he's not going to be coaching. So NC State need to win in the rival game to be bowl eligible. The Wolfpack have given up a total of 59 points in the last 2 games. Yikes. I think UNC plays for Mac Brown. He's no longer there. So I'll take UNC, and I'll give you the 3.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I feel like the coach leaving is going to make a detriment instead of a coach. So we'll see. And they might be playing for the interim, which we always talk about the coach coming in. Wow. I actually was the way you were going, I was like, it's going to go the opposite way.
Right. Yeah.
For my second bet, I'm going the Syracuse-Miami game. Miami had that loss to Georgia Tech, a couple weeks ago, I believe it was. Syracuse has this good quarterback that came from Ohio State. I can't think of his name right now. Not Cade.
McCord. Kyle McCord.
Yeah. And he's had one game this year, I think it was against Pitt, where he just threw the ball, and it was always to the opposite team. He had like 6 interceptions. Outside of that one game, he's had a great season. I think this is a game that can stay close. It's at Syracuse. It's 11-point spread, 11.5-point spread. I'm taking Syracuse on the 11.5. I thought about betting the over-under on this one, but I came back to it and said I'm going to do the 11.5. Okay. What do you got for your third bet?
I'm going to kind of piggyback on that game, Miami and Syracuse. Miami's covered the spread in 3 of the last 4 November games as a favorite against non-AP ranked teams. Syracuse has covered the spread in 4 of the last 5 games, top 10 teams. Miami offense is the best in the country, but their defense has a lot of holes. And I think Syracuse has one of the best with Cal McCord. So instead of taking the spread, I like this in a shootout. So I like the over at 67.5. That's a lot of points, but I think neither one of their defenses are very good.
Yeah, and honestly, the worst thing about this game is, since we're both betting on it, that Kyle McCord has to play good. Because if he's bad, my point spread's going to be shit, and your over is going to be shit. But hopefully we think of the way it goes. For my third bet, going back to one of our must-watch games, South Carolina versus Clemson. I think Clemson has definitely been playing better as of recent, but they kind of had a close game with Pitt going into overtime and things like that as well, or almost going into overtime. South Carolina, on the other hand, this year has been one of those years where we said could have been a couple plays away from playing for the SEC championship, okay? I think South Carolina puts a stamp on this season at the end of this one. I like their plus. They're getting 3 points in this game. I think the +3, they'll take this one. I wouldn't even, if you're like a little bit more of a riskier person, want a little bit more of an upside, I'd take money line. I think South Carolina wins this game outright. I think they beat them. I think this is where we'll see the difference of an SEC-ACC difference, because I don't even think this is the best ACC team. And I think right now that South Carolina might be playing the best SEC football right now. So I want the +3, or if you're really risky, get that money line.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree at home. I mean, this seems like Clemson doesn't play very good on the road. I mean, that quarterback Klubnik, he just doesn't. He's going to have a hell of a game because that crowd is going to be loud, very loud.
I think this one might be at Clemson.
Is it at Clemson?
It's at Clemson. So that's
okay. So then they should be fine. I mean,
But that's why I brought back the whole Louisville came in there and beat the shit out of them. So I just, it's one of these games where I think South Carolina, I don't know. I like it. I could be wrong, because guess what, people? We are just two goons talking football. Is Mr. Tim Cook over there having a hell of a streak in NFL? Yes, but doesn't mean the same thing for college football, right?
Yeah,
right. Our podcast on Wednesday, we gave you 3 solid bets. We said Kansas City not hitting the 12.5. They obviously only won by whatever last night. We said Green Bay 3.5. We hit that one hard. I actually did bet that one, so I'm going to only give 2 on Sunday. But I also threw out there the Cowboys one, right? So if you do listen to us, we're just two goons talking football. Please bet responsibly, but at the same time, take advantage when it's coming, when it's going right the way it is. We will be back on Sunday recapping the college football, talking about must-watch games. Now, remember, there was 3 games on Thursday, 1 game on Friday. So some of the NFL has kind of diminished on what's going to see on Sunday. And you also have a Monday night game. So might not be as much of the must-watch, might be a little bit stringed out, but we will be back on Sunday. I hope you guys have a great Saturday. Stay warm because it's cold as shit outside. I want to thank everyone. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you on Sunday.